If you're in a season of transition, I want you to stay tuned for this. Stay tuned for this. It's going to bless you. So with all the information circling, the commentary and all of that, and it's all good. It's hard to really pinpoint what God truly says about transitioning and not just recognizing the signs. And so because of that, I took myself to study a little bit further because I wanted to understand what God really says about transitioning. Not just here's 5 signs to know that you're transitioning or how to know that you're in a season of transitioning. Beyond that. So I went to Genesis chapter 12. And in Genesis chapter 12, that is when God comes to Abram and tells him, hey, I want you to leave your family, leave your country, leave your father's house, so forth, right? He gives him those set of instructions, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that fact that God said to Abram that he's going to be a father of many nations. We know that Abram was married to Sarai, right? And Sarai's reputation was a woman, a bride, a wife who was barren. She had no children. They had already been married and for a period of time and had not had any children yet. But the promise was that Abram was going to be a father of many nations. When God came to Abram and told him that, he was 75 years old. And when you read in the text, it says that he was 99 years old when the promise manifested, when Isaac was born. So that's 34 years that Abram waited for his promise. The part that I want to focus on is that Sarai, his wife, before she became Sarah, was beautiful, she was a bride, and she was barren. When you look at this recipe, you might think to yourself, like, what in the world? That's not the recipe for the promise that God has given to them. That sounds like, defeat. That sounds like there's no victory there because of the barrenness, right? And for many of us, we are waiting for the promise of God and we're looking at our own equation and we're saying, well, God, you've given me X, Y, Z, and I've only got part of it. But I want you to really pay close attention to that, because just because you only have part of it doesn't mean that the fullness of the promise isn't coming. You see, the enemy wants us to focus on God in a way that he's teasing us, in a way that he's like, slow to give us something or doesn't want to give or is apprehensive when it comes to giving us what he's promised. But I want you to take it in an inventory and an assessment of your life, evaluate the promise that you were seeking God for, and look at what recipe you already have to show you that the promise is on its way. It's merely a matter of time. And when we look at Sarah, who was a bride, who was beautiful and barren, we see that she waited just as long as Abram, with 34 years before her blessed baby came into the world. But what God really was doing with this recipe was testing their patience. If we look at any person in the Bible who was waiting for a promise, even if we look at ourselves, if I look at myself, the biggest area or the most challenging aspect of waiting for God is the length of time. It's patience. It's how long can we wait, and can we wait correctly? Right? Can we wait in a way that's honorable to God? Can we wait in a way that doesn't cause us to create the Ishmaels? Right? Can we wait in a way that our frustrations and disappointments don't overtake us? And that's the part where the enemy tricks us into taking matters into our own hands, because that's what they did. But God was faithful to them, that even though the recipe was unfavorable to them, they had part of it. But even though the recipe was unfavorable to them, he still came through and gave them Isaac, even though they created Ishmael. You too have the recipe, right? You might have the skill, but you're waiting for the job. You might be waiting for some other promise. You might be waiting for the healing, but the body is still got blood running warm in the veins, right? So that means the possibility for the promise to manifest is still there. See, we have part of the promise already here. That is proof that the promise is coming. And if you could hold on without becoming impatient, then the promise will be able to manifest. But you have to have faith in order to wait, in order to have the patience to wait properly in a way that is honorable to God. So that is transitioning right. That is transitioning in a way that honors God, is to be able to patiently wait. But the encouragement is you have part of the promise already.